The speaking section measures your ability to speak in English about a variety of topics. There are 6 questions in this section. Questions 1 and 2 are independent tasks in which you will speak about familiar topics. Your responses will be scored on your ability to speak clearly and coherently about the topics. Questions 3 and 4 are integrated speaking tasks. You will read a passage, listen to a conversation or lecture, and then speak in response to a question about what you have read and heard. You will need to combine relevant information from the 2 sources to answer the question completely. Your responses will be scored on your ability to speak clearly and coherently and on your ability to accurately convey information about what you read and heard. Questions 5 and 6 are integrated speaking tasks. You will listen to part of a conversation or lecture and then speak in response to a question about what you have heard. Your responses will be scored on your ability to speak clearly and coherently and on your ability to accurately convey information about what you heard. You will hear each conversation and lecture only one time. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help you answer the questions.
Number 1. In this question, you will be asked to talk about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response and 45 seconds to speak. Talk about a photograph or painting you have seen that was memorable. Explain what you liked or disliked about it.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.
Number 2. In this question, you will be asked to give your opinion about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response and 45 seconds to speak. Some people have one career throughout their lives. Other people do different kinds of work at different points in their lives. Which do you think is better? Explain why.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.
Number 3. In this question, you will read a short passage about a campus situation and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Now read a letter that a student has written to the university newspaper. You have 50 seconds to read the letter. Begin reading now. Now listen to two students discussing the letter.
I totally disagree with Tim's proposal.
Why?
Well, look, Tim's my friend, but he's not your typical student. He stays up late partying every night, weeknights too.
If he parties every night, no wonder he can't pay attention.
Yes, and most students aren't like that. They come to class prepared and rested, and they can concentrate.
So you're saying the problem is really Tim?
Yes, he was in one of my classes last year, and whenever I looked at him, he was actually sleeping.
I guess if he's sleeping, he can't really know what's happening, what other people in class are doing.
Right. And you want to know what does happen in that last hour of seminar? In a lot of seminars that I've been in, that's when things get interesting.
Really?
Yes, that's usually when students get really involved in the discussion and start exchanging important ideas. And if the history department actually did what Tim suggests, well, if they did that, what would happen is you'd lose what might be the most worthwhile part of a seminar.
The woman expresses her opinion about the proposal that her friend Tim made in his letter to the newspaper. State her opinion about his proposal and explain the reason she gives for her opinion.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.
Number 4. In this question, you will read a short passage on an academic subject and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. You have 45 seconds to read a passage from a psychology textbook. Begin reading now. Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a psychology class.
Okay, the first kind of memory, we're all very familiar with this, right? You probably remember what you had for dinner last night. You have a conscious memory of last night's dinner. So if I ask you, what did you eat last night, you could tell me. But these other kind of memories, implicit memories, they work differently. Let's take an example from the world of advertising. When you're driving along a highway, you see plenty of billboards, roadside advertisements. You certainly don't remember them all, but they still affect you. Marketing researchers have shown, well, to be specific, let's say there's a billboard on the highway advertising a car called the Panther. The ad shows a big picture of the car, and above the car in huge letters is the name of the car, Panther. A lot of people drive by the billboard. But ask those drivers later if they saw any advertisements for cars, and, well, they'll think about it, and a lot of them will say no. They honestly don't remember seeing any. They have no conscious memory of the Panther billboard. So, you ask these same people a different question. You ask, you ask them to name an animal starting with the letter P. What do you think they'll answer? Do they say pig? Pig is the most common animal that starts with the letter P. But they don't say pig. They say panther. The billboard had an effect, even though the drivers don't remember ever seeing it.
Using the example of the car advertisement, explain what is meant by implicit memory.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.
Number 5. In this question, you will listen to a conversation. You will then be asked to talk about the information in the conversation and to give your opinion about the ideas presented. After you hear the question, you will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Now listen to a conversation between a professor and a student.
Hi, Sarah. To what do I owe the pleasure of this office visit?
It's my study group, Professor Wilson. We're not getting much studying done, and, none of us did very well on your last quiz.
What's the problem?
Well, we've all become good friends, and we joke around a lot instead of studying.
Sarah, let me ask you this. When do you meet?
Every Friday afternoon.
Have you thought about changing to another day? By the time Friday afternoon rolls around, all of you are probably exhausted and all you want to do is relax and unwind. It's hard to stay focused at the very end of the week.
Good point. Although things have gotten so out of hand that I'm not sure changing days would help, and we'd lose one or two people if we change days. Friday afternoon's the only time everyone's available. But it's worth considering.
Okay, but just a second. Another possibility is, does your group have a leader?
No.
Well, if you had a leader, that would help enormously. Someone to set an agenda in advance, email it to everyone before the meeting, and then make sure, when you meet, that you stay focused on your goals. And since you seem to be concerned enough about the problem to have come see me, I think that someone might be you.
I guess I could take on that role, but it sounds like work.
You don't have to do it for the whole semester, Sarah. You can start it off, and then perhaps someone else can take over.
The professor proposes 2 solutions to the problem the woman describes. Briefly summarize the problem, then state which solution you recommend and explain why.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.
Number 6. In this question, you will listen to a short lecture. You will then be asked to summarize important information from the lecture. After you hear the question, you will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Now listen to part of a talk in an education class.
One of the hardest parts of teaching is keeping your students' attention. Now, the key to doing this is understanding the concept of attention. Basically, there are 2 types of attention. The first type is active. Active attention is voluntary. It's when you intentionally make yourself focus on something. And since it requires effort, it's hard to keep up for a long time. Okay, so let's say you're teaching a biology class, and today's topic is frogs. All right, you're standing at the front of the room and lecturing. A frog is a type of animal known as an amphibian. Well, this isn't necessarily going to keep the students' interest, but most of them will force themselves to pay active attention to your lecture. But it's only a matter of time before they get distracted. Now, the other type of attention is passive attention, when it's involuntary. Passive attention requires no effort because it happens naturally. If something's really interesting, students don't have to force themselves to pay attention to it. They do it without even thinking about it. So, back to our biology lecture. You start talking about frogs, and then you pull a live frog out of your briefcase. You're describing it while you hold it up. Show the students how long its legs are and how they're used for jumping, for example. Then maybe you even let the frog jump around a bit on the desk or the floor. In this case, by doing something unexpected, something more engaging, you can tap into their passive attention, and it can last much longer than active attention. As long as the frog's still there, your students will be interested.
Using points and examples from the talk, Explain the difference between active and passive attention.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.